Welcome to English Without Limit. I'm Julia, and today I want to share something very personal with you. When I first started learning English, I was filled with fear. I remember sitting in my room, listening to English songs, trying to repeat the words, but nothing seemed to come out right. My tongue felt heavy. My thoughts would freeze. Every time I opened my mouth, I worried someone would laugh at me. I felt like an outsider, in a world I desperately wanted to be part of. But somewhere inside me, I knew I couldn't let that fear decide my life. So, I made a decision. I would show up every day, no matter how messy or broken my English sounded. I often compare that moment to watching a baby take their first steps. No baby walks perfectly on the first try. They stumble, they fall, they cry, and they try again. And nobody judges them for falling. Instead, we celebrate the effort. That's exactly how I began to look at myself, like someone just learning to walk in a new world. With every mistake, I reminded myself I was learning. With every mispronounced word, I was taking one more step forward. I stopped chasing perfection and started celebrating progress, no matter how small it seemed. There were days I felt embarrassed. Sometimes people corrected me in public, and I wanted to disappear. But over time, I started to see those moments differently. They weren't signs of failure. They were proof I was brave enough to try. And every correction was a gift that helped me grow. I slowly started to enjoy the process. Instead of fearing it, I realized that speaking English wasn't about sounding like a native speaker. It was about connecting with people, expressing myself, and opening up to a new version of me that had been waiting to come out. Learning English changed my life in ways I could never have imagined. It gave me access to knowledge, friendships, job opportunities, and above all, confidence. It helped me discover a stronger version of myself, someone who doesn't give up just because things are hard. And I want the same for you. I want you to know that every step you take matters, even the small ones, especially the small ones. If you've ever doubted your ability to speak English, just remember, you're not alone. You're not behind. You're just learning to walk, and every stumble is part of the journey. If this message speaks to you, take a deep breath and leave a comment below. With one small step you'll take today, let's grow together. I remember very clearly the first time I had to speak English in front of someone. My heart was pounding so loud, I could hear it in my ears. I was in a small conversation group, and all I had to do was introduce myself. Just a few simple sentences. But in that moment, it felt like the hardest thing in the world. My mouth went dry. My hands started shaking. I could feel every eye in the room on me. The fear wasn't just about saying the wrong words. It was about being judged, being laughed at, or looking foolish. That fear was real, and I know so many of you feel it too. You want to speak English, but something inside holds you back. That something is fear. Fear of making mistakes. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of not being understood. The truth is, this fear is something we all go through. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're not smart. It just means you care. You care about doing things right. You care about how you're seen. You care about your progress. And that's a beautiful thing. But sometimes, caring too much can stop us from moving forward. It can trap us in silence, hesitation, waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. One of the biggest turning points in my English journey came when I finally accepted that mistakes are not the enemy. In fact, they are necessary. You cannot grow without them. I want to be honest with you. There is no path to fluency without making mistakes. You will get words wrong. You will confuse grammar. You will mispronounce things. People might not understand you at first. And yes, some people might correct you or even laugh. But I promise you, most people won't. And more importantly, none of that will matter if you keep going. Think about how we learn anything new. When you learn to ride a bike, you probably fell more than once. You didn't quit because of that. You got back up and tried again. Learning English is no different. It's not about being perfect. It's about being brave. It's about showing up even when you're scared. It's about opening your mouth and trusting that, with time, your voice will get stronger. I used to feel ashamed when I made mistakes. If someone corrected my English, I would replay the moment in my head over and over, wishing I could go back and fix it. But now, I look at those moments with gratitude. Each mistake was a lesson. Each correction was a gift. Every time I stumbled, I learned something new. I began to see mistakes not as failures, but as stepping stones. That shift in mindset changed everything for me. It took time, but eventually, I stopped fearing mistakes and started embracing them. There is something powerful that happens when you allow yourself to speak, even when you know it won't come out perfectly. You begin to build confidence. You begin to understand your patterns, your weak spots, and your strengths. You start developing real communication skills, not just memorizing grammar rules or vocabulary lists, but actually using the language in a real, human way. And that's when progress starts to happen. Not in silence, not in waiting, but in action. I also want to remind you that people are more patient and supportive than you might think. When someone sees that you're trying to speak their language, most of the time, they're impressed. They admire your effort. They want to help. And the ones who don't? That's not your problem. Your journey is not about pleasing others. It's about unlocking your voice, your potential, and your dreams. Let me tell you something I've learned over the years. Fluency is not about never making mistakes. Fluency is about being comfortable enough to make them and keep going. When I was in college, I had a classmate from Brazil who was just starting to learn English. He made mistakes in almost every sentence he spoke. But you know what? He kept talking. He never stopped trying. And because of that, he improved faster than anyone else in the group. While others waited until they felt ready, he dove in, made all the mistakes, and grew like crazy. Today he speaks confidently, and people always say how natural he sounds. That didn't happen because he was perfect. It happened because he was fearless. I know how tempting it is to stay quiet, to wait until you feel 100% prepared before you speak. But if you do that, you might wait forever. The truth is, You get better by doing. You don't need to be fluent to start speaking. You just need to be willing. Willing to try, to fall, to get up again. The more you speak, the faster you grow. The more you allow yourself to make mistakes, the more confident you become. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about learning through it. There's also something very special about vulnerability. When you allow yourself to be imperfect in front of others, you create connection. You open the door for learning and for relationships that go beyond language. I've had some of my most meaningful conversations with people while I was still making tons of mistakes. But those moments were real. And that's what communication is all about. Not perfection, but connection. So, if you're holding back because you're afraid of looking silly or saying something wrong, I want to gently challenge you today. Speak anyway. Make the mistake. Say the sentence. Ask the question. You are not your grammar errors. You are not your accent. You are not your fears. You are a learner. And that means you are growing every day. No matter where you are in your journey, your voice matters. Your story matters. Your effort matters. And here's what I want you to do next. Think of one thing you've been too afraid to say in English. Maybe it's a sentence. Maybe it's a question. Maybe it's just your introduction. Whatever it is, practice saying it out loud today. Say it in front of the mirror. Say it to a friend. Record yourself. Just say it. And then come back and tell me how it felt. Leave a comment and let me know what sentence you chose and what it was like to finally speak it. Let's take that step together. Today, I want to talk about something simple but powerful: listening. Listening to English regularly even when you don't understand everything works the same way your brain learns anything new. Your brain is always listening, always learning, even in the background. That's why I started changing my environment. I turned my phone and social media into English. I listened to podcasts while cooking, cleaning, commuting. I watched shows with subtitles, then later without them. I followed YouTube channels that talked about topics I love: travel, education, personal development. The key was immersion. Not just studying English for 1 hour a day, but surrounding myself with the language as much as possible. The more I listened, the more natural English began to feel. Here's something that surprised me. Even before I could respond in English, I could understand the mood, the tone, the intention behind the words. It wasn't just about grammar anymore. It was about communication. When you listen often, you start noticing how native speakers link words together, how they stress certain syllables, how their pitch changes when they ask a question. These are small details no textbook teaches you, but they make English sound like English. Active listening means being present, not just having English playing in the background, but truly engaging with what you're hearing. That might mean pausing a video to repeat a phrase, writing down new words, or even mimicking the speaker, copying their pronunciation and intonation. When you listen this way, you're not just training your ears, you're training your brain to think in English. You're building a familiarity that helps you respond faster when it's your turn to speak. One technique I love and recommend you try is shadowing. It means listening to a short clip, then repeating exactly what the speaker says right after they say it. Try to copy not just the words, but their tone, rhythm, and speed. It's challenging at first, but one of the most effective ways to improve both listening and speaking. You become more aware of sounds and begin to feel the language in your mouth, not just your mind. Another benefit of active listening is learning real, everyday English. In school, you might learn, "How are you?" and "I am fine, thank you." But in real conversations, people say things like, "What's up?" or "I'm doing all right." You hear fillers like, "you know," like, "kind of." You discover idioms, jokes, sarcasm, emotions. This kind of English is what you need to sound natural and understand others in real situations. There was a time when I felt frustrated because I couldn't speak as well as I wanted. But I noticed something I was understanding more and more. I could follow podcasts without subtitles. I could watch movies and know what was going on, even without looking up words. That understanding gave me confidence. It showed me that progress was happening, even when it didn't feel obvious. That's the power of listening. It grows inside you silently, until one day, you open your mouth and the words are just there. If you've been struggling to speak, ask yourself how much you're listening, not passively, but actively. Are you surrounding yourself with English every day? Are you choosing materials that interest you, that make you want to come back and listen again? Are you taking the time to notice how things are said, not just what is said? These questions matter because the answers can unlock a whole new level of fluency. It's okay if you don't understand everything right away. That's not the goal. The goal is exposure, repetition, getting your ears used to English sounds until they stop feeling foreign. You're training your brain to recognize patterns. The more you hear a word, the more likely you are to remember it. The more you hear a phrase, the more likely you are to use it. It's a natural process. You just have to give it time and keep going. If you've been afraid to listen to native content because it feels too difficult, I understand. But I want to encourage you to start small. Maybe it's a 5-minute podcast. Maybe one scene from a movie you love. Start there. Listen again and again. Let your brain absorb the rhythm. Don't worry about perfection. Focus on progress. Let the sounds become familiar. Over time, you'll be amazed at how much you start to understand, not just with your mind, but with your ears and your heart. Now, I want to challenge you. Pick one audio or video in English that you like. Maybe a podcast episode, a YouTube clip, or a movie scene. Listen to it at least 3 times today. The first time, just listen. The second time, take notes on new words or interesting expressions. The third time, try to repeat some parts out loud. Pay attention to how the speaker says things. Then come back and tell me what you discovered. Let's make listening your secret superpower. One thing I often hear from English learners is, "I want to speak, but I have no one to talk to." I always say, your fluency does not depend on another person. You can begin speaking English right now by yourself, wherever you are. In fact, that's how I started. I spoke to myself out loud every day. At first, it felt strange. I was shy, even though no one was around. But over time, it became one of my most powerful tools for developing confidence and fluency. Speaking to yourself isn't about pretending you're fluent. It's about building your muscles literally. When you speak out loud, you train your mouth to form new sounds. You practice linking words, controlling breath, using intonation. It's physical. It's real. Just like going to the gym strengthens your body, speaking out loud strengthens your ability to use English naturally. And the best part? You can do it anytime while brushing your teeth, walking to work, cooking dinner. You don't need a teacher or a class. You just need your voice and a little imagination. Sometimes I imagined myself in situations I wanted to be in. Ordering coffee at a cafe in New York, asking for directions in London, introducing myself at a job interview. I created the entire scene in my head, then spoke as if I were there. Hi, can I get a medium latte, please? Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to the train station? Hello, my name is Julia, and I'm excited about this opportunity. Over and over, I practiced these imaginary conversations. They weren't real, but the fluency I built from them was. And it wasn't just repeating sentences. I made them personal. I told stories to myself. I described my day in English. I shared my opinions. Today I woke up late, but I had a great breakfast. I think learning a language takes patience, but it's also fun. This morning, I read something interesting about space travel. I didn't worry about being perfect. I didn't stop to check grammar. I just kept talking because the goal wasn't to impress anyone. It was to keep my brain and mouth working together in English. You might be thinking, but what if I make mistakes? You will. And that's the point. When you speak to yourself, there's no pressure, no judgment, no corrections. It's your space to experiment, explore, push your limits. Sometimes I'd say something, realize it sounded strange, and try again. That's how I learned. That's how you build self-correction skills, be noticing your own patterns and adjusting them. It's like learning to ride a bike. You wobble, you fall, but you get better by doing it again and again. One trick that helped me was using everyday objects around me. I'd point to things and name them in English. This is a chair. It's blue. I'm sitting on it. I'd open the fridge and describe what I saw. There's milk. There are eggs. I have some apples. They look fresh. This practice might seem simple, but it builds vocabulary and confidence. It teaches you to describe the world around you in English using words you already know. And believe me, those simple words are powerful. You don't need complex vocabulary to express yourself. You need fluency with basic language. Some of the most effective communicators use very simple words. They speak clearly. They repeat ideas. They pause. They make sure their message is easy to understand. That's what fluency really is. It's not about knowing fancy words. It's about knowing how to use the words you do, know smoothly and naturally. That's why I always say, speak simply, but speak often. Simplicity builds fluency faster than complexity. Eventually, I began to include my thoughts and feelings in my self-talk. If I felt tired, I'd say, I'm tired today, but I have things to do. If I felt happy, I feel good. I had a nice conversation with a friend. If I was nervous, I'd talk about it too. I'm a little nervous about tomorrow's meeting, but I'll prepare well. This habit helped me get comfortable expressing emotions in English. That's something many learners forget to practice, but it's essential for real conversations. Of course, practicing with friends is valuable too. If you have someone who's learning English, you can meet and talk regularly. You don't need to correct each other. Just focus on speaking. Choose topics, set time limits, encourage each other. I used to meet once a week with a friend just to talk in English. Sometimes we described our weekends. Other times we role-played situation shopping, traveling. It was fun, and it helped both of us grow. But remember, speaking with others is a bonus, not a requirement. You can go far even on your own. One of the most creative ways I practiced was recording myself. I'd talk about my day, record a message, then listen to it later. At first, I didn't like how I sounded. But over time, I started to hear improvement. I could notice when my pronunciation was off, when I spoke too fast, or when I used a word incorrectly. Listening to yourself gives perspective. It helps you become your own coach. It's a powerful habit, and I still do it today when learning something new. You don't have to wait for the perfect situation to start speaking. You don't need permission. You can begin right now, wherever you are. Just say a sentence, then say another. Don't worry if it's simple. Don't worry if you repeat yourself. The important thing is to make English part of your life and not just something you study. The more you speak, even alone, the more natural it will feel. And soon, when the moment comes to speak with someone else, you'll be ready. I want to give you a very specific challenge. For the next 3 days, speak to yourself in English for at least 5 minutes each day. You can talk about your plans, describe what you see, or imagine a conversation. It doesn't matter what you say, just say it. Make English part of your day with your own voice. And if you want to go even further, record one of these sessions and listen to it later. Notice how you sound. Notice what you can improve. This small habit could unlock a big change in your fluency. I remember clearly the first time I had to speak English in front of a group. My heart was beating so fast I thought everyone could hear it. My palms were sweaty. Mi mot fel dru. And my mind kept repeating the same fear. What if I say something wrong? What if they laugh at me? That fear, the fear of being judged or ridiculed, almost stopped me from speaking at all. And I know many of you have felt the same way. You want to speak, you want to participate, but there's this voice inside telling you that someone might laugh, someone might correct you harshly, someone might think you're not smart enough. That fear is real. I've lived it. When I was learning English, I had this constant pressure in my mind. I thought if I didn't speak perfectly, people would look down on me. If I mispronounced a word or used the wrong tense, I would be exposed. It's strange how our minds exaggerate the danger of small things. It's just a word, a sentence, a tiny moment in time. But to me, it felt like I was being judged as a whole person. I avoided speaking in public. I kept quiet during conversations. I rehearsed basic phrases over and over before saying them. And still, when the time came to speak, I often froze. But then, something happened. I had no choice but to speak. I was at a small gathering, and someone asked me directly, "What do you think about this topic?" I couldn't escape. Everyone turned to look at me. I felt like I was standing under a spotlight. My voice shook as I spoke. I made grammar mistakes. I paused too much. I even forgot a word and had to describe it instead. But something unexpected happened. No one laughed. No one rolled their eyes. In fact, people nodded, smiled, and responded kindly. That moment changed everything for me. I realized the fear in my head was much bigger than the reality. After that day, I began testing my fear more often. I started saying more in class. I asked questions. I talked to strangers. And every time, the reaction was the same. People were kind. They were patient. They appreciated that I was trying. Of course, not every single person was perfect, but the overwhelming majority were supportive. I discovered something very important. Most people aren't sitting there waiting to judge you. They're not perfect speakers either. Many of them have struggled with languages. They understand how hard it is. And some are even inspired by your courage to try. I also noticed something else. When you speak a second language, people don't expect perfection. They admire effort. They listen more carefully. They focus on your message, not your accent or your grammar. I once had a long conversation with someone who barely understood English. Their words were simple. Their grammar was broken, but their passion and sincerity were powerful. I didn't care about the mistakes. I cared about the connection. And that helped me realize I don't judge people who are trying. So why would I think they're judging me? That realization freed me. It didn't mean the fear disappeared completely, but I stopped letting it control me. I began to see speaking English as something brave, not risky. Every time I opened my mouth, I reminded myself, you are practicing courage. You are not trying to be perfect. You are trying to communicate, to grow, to connect. That mindset shift changed the way I approached every conversation. Let me tell you another story. I was once in a group of English learners, and a woman from Brazil was sharing her thoughts. Her accent was strong, and she used the wrong words several times. At one point, she said something and immediately covered her mouth, embarrassed. She whispered, "Sorry, my English is terrible." But before anyone could say anything, someone else in the group responded, "No, it's not. I understood you. That's what matters." It was such a simple moment, but it made her smile and keep going. And that's what I've seen again and again. The kindness of others is much more common than we think. Sometimes we carry memories of past experiences, maybe a teacher who corrected us too harshly, or a classmate who laughed. Those moments stay with us and grow into fear. But we forget the many times people supported us, helped us, or simply listened without judgment. I've had people laugh at my English too. I've had people correct me in ways that felt uncomfortable, but they were rare, and they never stopped me from continuing. If I had focused only on those moments, I would have missed out on so many opportunities to grow. I learned to speak despite the fear. Not because I became fearless, but because I chose to act anyway. I would feel the nervousness, the doubt, the worry, and I would speak anyway. And every time I did, I got stronger. That's how confidence is built. Not by waiting for fear to disappear, but by doing the thing anyway and seeing that you survived, that it wasn't as bad as you imagined. You might think people are paying close attention to your mistakes, but most of the time, they're just trying to understand what you're saying. They're thinking about their own ideas, their own responses. No one is analyzing your grammar with a red pen. They just want to have a conversation. And if you stay silent, they miss the chance to hear your perspective. You have something to say. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Don't let fear steal that from you. And remember, a person you admire once struggled too. Every fluent speaker you hear now once made basic mistakes. They stumbled. They forgot words. They mispronounced things. Fluency is the result of many, many imperfect moments. So, if you're in the middle of those moments right now, that means you're on the right path. Here's something I encourage you to try. Think of one moment when you wanted to speak but didn't, because you were afraid of being judged. Now imagine going back to that moment with the courage you have today. What would you say? What would you do differently? Visualize yourself speaking with confidence. Then, the next time you have a similar chance, remember that version of yourself and let her speak. I want to invite you to take a small step today. Find a place where you feel safe, maybe your room, maybe a quiet walk outside, and speak out loud in English for just a few minutes. Tell a story, share an opinion, describe your day. But before you begin, say this out loud. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be brave. And then speak. That small act of courage could change everything. When I first started learning English more seriously, one of the most powerful habits I developed was reading out loud. It might sound simple, but the impact it had on my fluency, confidence, and overall understanding of the language was incredible. At first, I didn't realize how valuable it would be. I thought, it's just reading, right? But the truth is, reading out loud activates so many parts of your brain at once. You're not just looking at words and understanding them. You're processing the meaning, forming the sounds, controlling your breathing, adjusting your tone, and using your memory. It's a full mental workout. And the more you do it, the stronger your language skills become. I like to compare it to physical exercise. Think of your brain as a muscle and reading out loud as lifting weights. At the beginning, it feels heavy. You struggle with pronunciation. You pause in the wrong places. You feel awkward. But just like with any physical training, if you keep doing it consistently, your language muscles get stronger. You become more familiar with sentence patterns. You get faster. Your pronunciation becomes clearer. Your brain starts to connect words and meanings more quickly. You stop translating in your head and begin to think directly in English. That's the real power of this practice. There were days when I would choose a short story, an article, or even a page from a novel, and just read it aloud. I didn't worry too much about understanding every single word. My goal was to focus on rhythm, pronunciation, and getting my mouth used to the movement of English. It felt awkward in the beginning, especially when I stumbled over unfamiliar words. But I reminded myself, this was exactly why I was doing it. The more I stumbled and corrected myself, the better I got. Reading out loud also helped me build confidence. You know that nervous feeling when you're about to speak, and you're not sure if the words will come out right? That fear got smaller the more I read aloud. It was like rehearsing for real-life conversations. My tongue got used to the sounds. My mind got used to forming full English sentences. And slowly, I started to speak with less hesitation. Even though no one was listening most of the time, I felt like I was preparing for the moments when someone would be. I remember one specific day, when I was reading a news article out loud in my room. I was alone, and I decided to record myself. When I listened to the recording, I was surprised. I sounded better than I thought I would. Yes, there were mistakes, and my accent was strong, but I understood myself clearly. That small win boosted my motivation. I realized I didn't need to sound perfect. I just needed to keep going, keep improving, keep practicing. And reading out loud became my daily ritual. Something I noticed early on was how helpful it was to pause and repeat difficult phrases. If I came across a tricky sentence, I would read it slowly, then again at a normal speed, then one more time, trying to sound natural. That repetition created fluency. And often, when I found a word I didn't know how to pronounce, I would take a moment to look it up, listening to the correct pronunciation, and then repeating it out loud made a big difference. I didn't try to memorize too many words at once. I focused on mastering just a few each day, and over time, that added up. Of course, sometimes I needed help. There were moments when, no matter how many times I tried to pronounce a word, it just didn't sound right. That's when I learned the importance of asking for support. I would send a voice message to a friend, ask a teacher, or even post a question in a language learning group. And every time I asked, I felt a little more connected to my learning journey. Asking for help isn't a weakness. It's part of the process. It shows you care about growing. It means you're engaged and willing to learn from others. I want to be honest. There were days when I felt stuck. Days when I didn't feel like reading anything. When every sentence felt like a struggle. But even on those days, reading aloud helped me reconnect with the rhythm of English. Sometimes I would read a children's book or a dialogue from a movie script just to make it fun and simple. Other times I picked something more challenging. No matter what I chose, the act of reading out loud kept my mind active and my voice familiar with the language. Another beautiful benefit is how it improves your listening. When you read out loud regularly, you start to recognize the way English sounds. Your ears get better at picking up intonation, sentence flow, and natural pauses. Later, when you watch a movie or listen to someone speak, it becomes easier to follow because your brain already knows how English is supposed to sound. Reading out loud trains your ears as much as your tongue. One tip I always share is this: choose materials that interest you. Don't force yourself to read boring texts. If you love cooking, read recipes out loud. If you enjoy news, pick short articles about topics you care about. If you like storytelling, read dialogues or stories that keep you engaged. The key is to make it feel like a conversation, not a chore. The more you enjoy what you're reading, the more natural your voice will sound. Also, don't worry if you're alone. Speaking to yourself is not strange. It's smart. Some of the best progress I made happened when no one was around. I could practice freely, make mistakes without pressure, and try new phrases without fear. If you want to take it further, record your voice once a week and listen back. Notice what's improving and what needs work. You'll be surprised by your own growth. When you hear it with fresh ears, I also encourage you to read the same passage multiple times. The first time, you're just figuring out the words. The second time, you start to feel more comfortable. By the third or fourth time, your voice sounds smoother and your confidence grows. Repetition is not boring. It's how mastery is built. Reading out loud became more than just a technique for me. It became a habit that anchored my daily learning. I could feel my progress not just in how I sounded, but in how I felt. More relaxed, more capable, more connected to the language. Every word I spoke aloud was a step forward, even if it was small, and that gave me the energy to keep going, even when progress felt slow. If you've never tried reading out loud consistently, I invite you to begin today. Pick a short text, just a few paragraphs, and read it slowly, clearly, and confidently. You don't need to perform for anyone. This is for you, for your growth, your fluency, your voice. Speak the words into the air and let your brain do the work of building that bridge between thought and speech. And if you need support, ask. There are people who want to help you succeed. You're not alone. Let this practice become part of your learning routine. Let it become your daily training, your quiet rehearsal for real conversations. One sentence at a time, you're getting stronger. One page at a time, you're becoming more fluent. Your voice deserves to be heard. And here's something you can do right now. Choose your favorite quote, paragraph, or short dialogue in English, and read it out loud 3 times today. If you can, record yourself. Listen to how you sound. Then come back to it tomorrow and do it again. Make this a daily habit. The results will surprise you. When I think about the one thing that made the biggest difference in my journey learning English, it wasn't a textbook, a special app, or even a great teacher. It was belief. Belief in myself. That may sound simple, but it's one of the hardest things to maintain, especially when progress feels slow or mistakes keep happening. I've been there. I've had days when I doubted if I'd ever feel confident speaking, days when I compared myself to others and felt small. But I learned that believing in myself was not a personality trait I was born with. It was a decision I had to make again and again. Positive thinking is not about pretending everything is easy. It's about choosing to focus on your progress instead of your limitations. It's about seeing mistakes as steps forward, not signs of failure. Every time I struggled with pronunciation or forgot a word in the middle of a conversation, I reminded myself, this is part of learning. I am improving, even when it doesn't feel like it. And over time, those small mental shifts helped me keep going when I might have given up. I like to imagine the process of learning English as climbing a mountain. At the bottom, everything seems far away. The peak looks unreachable. But when you start walking step by step, things change. You don't reach the top in one giant leap. You move little by little, and every step counts. Some steps are easy, some are steep and painful. And sometimes you might slip or feel tired. But as long as you keep moving, you are getting closer. That's how I see language learning. It's not about speed. It's about consistency, effort, and belief. There were many moments when I felt stuck. I remember trying to understand fast conversations in movies or real-life situations, and I just couldn't follow. Ich felt lost. But then I told myself, it's okay. I don't understand it today, but one day I will. That single thought kept me going. I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to believe that improvement was possible. And once I did, everything became more manageable. I started celebrating small victories, like understanding one full sentence without translating, or remembering a new word without checking the dictionary. This mindset of progress over perfection changed how I studied. Instead of feeling disappointed when I couldn't say something the right way, I felt proud that I tried. Instead of being embarrassed when I made a mistake, I reminded myself that mistakes meant I was practicing, and that practice meant I was getting better. I stopped chasing instant results and started enjoying the journey. I trusted the process even when the results were invisible. It's easy to admire someone who speaks English fluently and think they're just naturally good at it, but that's rarely the truth. Most of the people you admire didn't start with confidence. They built it over time. They struggled. They made mistakes. And they probably doubted themselves too. The difference is, they kept going. And the only way to do that is by believing deep down that you can grow. Believing in yourself doesn't mean ignoring your fears. It means choosing to act despite them. I was afraid of sounding silly. I was afraid of people judging my accent. But I reminded myself that my voice mattered. My effort mattered. And the more I believed that, the easier it became to speak up, even when I wasn't sure I'd say things perfectly. That kind of courage doesn't come from confidence. It comes from belief. Belief that your voice deserves to be heard, that your ideas are valuable, and that your English will get better with time and practice. A strong mindset can turn a difficult day into a productive one. When you believe in yourself, you stop wasting time thinking, what if I fail? And start asking, what can I learn from this? You become more resilient. You bounce back faster after setbacks. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's not good at English and start seeing yourself as someone who is learning and growing. One thing that helped me was creating small rituals to remind myself of my progress. I wrote down new words I had learned each week and looked back at them at the end of the month. I recorded short voice messages to myself and listened to how my pronunciation improved. These small habits gave me visible proof that I was getting better, and they made it easier to believe in my ability to keep going. I also surrounded myself with positive voices. I followed people who inspired me. I joined communities of learners who supported each other. I listened to podcasts and videos where people shared their own struggles. That reminded me I wasn't alone. Everyone has moments of doubt. What matters is what we do next. Do we give up, or do we keep climbing? There was a time when I almost stopped practicing because I felt like I was moving too slowly. But then I thought about that mountain again. I imagined myself sitting halfway up tired, looking down at how far I'd come. I realized it would be a shame to stop now. I'd already climbed so much. Maybe the top was still far, but I had already done what many people never even started. And that gave me the strength to take one more step. That's how belief works. It doesn't erase your struggles, but it gives you the energy to face them. So whenever you find yourself doubting your ability to learn English, I want you to pause and remember this. You are not alone. Every learner, including me, has felt what you're feeling. We've all stumbled. We've all questioned ourselves. But we kept going because we chose to believe. Not because we were special or perfect, but because we understood. That belief is what fuels progress. Your brain is capable of learning. Your voice is capable of expressing. And your effort is never wasted. Even if today feels hard, even if you feel behind, you are still on the mountain. You are still moving. And that is powerful. Keep reminding yourself that success is not about being the fastest. It's about being the one who doesn't stop. The one who believes in the journey, even when the path is steep. If you've been struggling with self-doubt or feeling like you're not good enough, here's something simple you can do. Write down one small thing you've improved in the last week. Maybe you understood a podcast better. Maybe you spoke with a little more confidence. Maybe you learned 3 new words. No win is too small. Keep this list and add to it every week. Let it become proof of your progress. Let it remind you that you are climbing your mountain one step at a time. Learning English is much like planting a seed and nurturing it every day. When I first started, I didn't become fluent overnight, and neither will you. The process of growing your language skills is slow and steady, just like a tree growing from a tiny seed into a strong, tall tree. I like to imagine that every word I learn, every sentence I speak, every mistake I make, is like watering that seed, giving it sunlight, or adding nutrients to the soil. At first, you may not see much change, and it can feel discouraging. But if you keep taking care of your learning day by day, you start to see roots form beneath the surface. It just doesn't work otherwise. You have to respect the natural pace. Some days you'll see visible progress. Other days it may feel like nothing is happening at all. But just like a tree growing underground before sprouting, your brain is quietly building connections and skills that will soon emerge when you least expect it. Cultivating your learning means you also have to be gentle with yourself. Sometimes trees get hit by storms or lose leaves, and that's part of their growth cycle. Similarly, you might have days when you feel stuck, frustrated, or less motivated. That's normal. What matters is that you don't give up. You can adjust your approach. Maybe try a new method, ask for help, or take a short break and then return to your practice with fresh energy. Every gardener knows that patience and care are essential, and the same applies to learning English. Another important part of cultivating your skills is creating an environment that supports growth. Think about how trees thrive best in fertile soil with plenty of sunlight and water. Your learning environment can be just as crucial. Surround yourself with positive influences, supportive friends, encouraging teachers, and materials that excite you. Find ways to bring English into your daily life naturally. Listen to music, watch shows, read stories, or even talk to yourself. The more you immerse yourself, the richer your soil becomes, and the easier it will be for your skills to flourish. Persistence means showing up even when you don't feel like it. There will be moments when motivation dips, and that's when discipline takes over. I've learned that having a routine helps me keep my learning alive, even on tough days. Whether it's spending 5 minutes reviewing vocabulary every morning, or listening to an English podcast while commuting, these small habits act like daily watering for my language tree. It might not seem like much in the moment, but over weeks and months, the effects multiply. I also found that celebrating small milestones is essential for staying motivated. When I learned a new phrase, or when someone understood me without asking me to repeat, I treated it like a small fruit harvested from my tree. These moments of success remind me why I keep going. They give me energy to water the seed the next day. You can do the same. Acknowledge every little win, no matter how small it feels, because it means your tree is growing. Remember that growth isn't always visible on the surface. Just like a tree's roots spread deep underground, before you see any leaves, your brain is working hard to absorb, store, and connect new information, even if you don't notice immediate results. Trusting this process is a form of faith in yourself and your ability to improve. When frustration comes, remind yourself that this is part of growth and keep going. Over time, as your English skills develop, you'll notice your confidence growing, like the sturdy trunk of a tree. Your vocabulary will branch out, your grammar will strengthen, and your fluency will become more natural. Just like a mature tree provides shade and fruit, your English will open doors to new opportunities, friendships, and experiences. But all of this depends on the consistent care you give your learning journey every single day. I found that the most successful learners are those who treat language learning not as a race, but as a lifelong garden to tend. They are patient, consistent, and kind to themselves. They know that some days they'll see big leaves and flowers, and other days they'll just water the soil quietly. Both are important. So I encourage you to be that gardener for your English skills. Water your seed every day with a little practice. Protect it from doubt and negativity. Give it time and patience. And watch how your efforts grow into something strong and beautiful. If you're ready to start planting and nurturing your English skills today, try setting a simple daily goal. It could be as small as learning one new word, reading a paragraph out loud, or listening to a short English conversation. Track these little steps and celebrate your consistency. You'll be amazed at how much you grow over time. I still remember my very first conversation in English like it was yesterday. Even though it happened years ago, I was nervous beyond belief. My heart was pounding and my mind was racing to find the right words. I barely knew enough to form complete sentences, and I was terrified of making mistakes or sounding silly. But despite that fear, I knew that I had to try. I needed to practice if I ever wanted to improve. So I took a deep breath and started speaking. It wasn't perfect. Far from it. My sentences were choppy. My pronunciation was off, and I had to ask the other person to repeat themselves more than once. But I did it. That moment was my first victory. It showed me that even if I wasn't fluent yet, I could communicate and be understood. That small success gave me the courage to keep going. Looking back, I realize how important it is to celebrate these first victories, no matter how small they seem. When you start speaking English, your confidence may be fragile. You might stumble over words, mix up tenses, or forget what you wanted to say. But every time you try, you're building something powerful, a foundation of experience. Speaking, even with errors, is a sign of courage. It means you're willing to step outside your comfort zone, which is exactly what learning a language requires. The truth is, nobody expects you to be perfect at the beginning. Most people are understanding and appreciate your effort. When I first started, I was surprised by how patient and encouraging many people were. Their kindness made me feel less afraid and more motivated to continue. I want to remind you that trying is more important than being perfect. In fact, making mistakes is one of the best ways to learn. Every error you make is an opportunity to improve. When I used the wrong word or mixed up my grammar, I would mentally note it, ask questions, and then practice the correct way. Over time, those mistakes became fewer, and my English got stronger. But I had to be brave enough to try, even though I knew I wouldn't sound perfect. That bravery is a skill you can develop, just like learning new vocabulary or grammar rules. It's also important to remember that the first time you speak English out loud might feel uncomfortable or even embarrassing. That feeling is normal because you are breaking through a barrier. You're stepping into new territory, where the language is unfamiliar, and you don't yet have full control. But the more you practice, the more that discomfort fades. The brain adapts and the words come more easily. The fear lessens, and the joy of communicating starts to replace that initial anxiety. I've seen this happen not just to myself, but to thousands of students I've worked with over the years. It's always amazing to watch someone go from silence to speaking with confidence. Sometimes the fear of speaking keeps people stuck. They worry about what others will think, or are embarrassed by their accent or mistakes. I get it because I felt that way too. But I learned that the biggest obstacle is often inside our own heads. The truth is, most people are more interested in connecting and understanding you than in judging your mistakes. When you focus on sharing your ideas, rather than being perfect, you open the door to meaningful communication. This shift in mindset is what helped me, and it can help you too. Your first conversations in English don't have to be long or complicated. Even short exchanges count as victories. Saying hello, asking how are you, or ordering food at a restaurant are all important moments. These small interactions build your confidence and prepare you for more complex conversations. I encourage you to seek out opportunities to speak, even if it's just a few sentences. Talk to a friend, join a language group, or practice with a language partner online. Every conversation is a step forward. When I think about my own journey, I remember feeling proud each time I spoke, no matter how imperfectly. That pride was fuel for my next attempt. It created a positive cycle where trying led to success, and success inspired more trying. If you can build this cycle for yourself, your English will grow naturally and joyfully. You don't need to wait until you're perfect to start enjoying speaking. The enjoyment comes from the act of trying and connecting with others. The courage to try is one of the most powerful tools you have in learning English. It's not about waiting until you feel ready or flawless. It's about starting where you are and taking the first step. When you speak, you're practicing not just language skills, but also confidence and resilience. These qualities will serve you in many areas of life far beyond learning English. Every time you speak up, you become a little stronger, a little braver. I encourage you to remember your own small victories. Maybe it was your first time introducing yourself in English, or the moment you understood a movie without subtitles. These are milestones worth celebrating. Keep a mental or even written list of these moments. Remind yourself how far you've come. When doubts or fear appear, look back on these wins and let them motivate you to keep moving forward. If you're nervous about speaking, start small. Try practicing in front of a mirror or recording yourself. These low-pressure exercises build your confidence. Then, move on to speaking with a friend or teacher who can offer encouragement. Remember, the goal is progress, not perfection. Every attempt you make plants a seed, and over time, that seed will grow into fluency. You have the power to create your own victories starting today. Take that brave step to speak even if it feels scary. The more you try, the more confident you become, and the easier speaking English will feel. If this idea resonates with you, share your first speaking experience in the comments, or join our community where we celebrate every step of the language journey together. Your courage to try inspires others too. When I first started learning English, one thing I quickly realized is that speaking isn't just about words. It's about so much more than grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation. It's about connecting not only with the language, but with the people you're communicating with. One of the most powerful ways to do that is through body language and emotional expression. Over time, I learned how important it is to pay attention to facial expressions, gestures, and the feelings behind the words we say. These things add meaning, make conversations richer, and help bridge the gaps that words alone sometimes can't fill. Think about the last time you had a really good conversation with someone, whether in your own language or in English. Chances are, you were not only listening to the words, but also noticing how they were said. You saw the smile, the raised eyebrows, or maybe the slight nod that showed understanding. Maybe you noticed hand gestures that emphasized a point, or a certain tone of voice that expressed excitement or concern. All these elements work together to create a connection between people. They help us understand each other on a deeper level, beyond just the literal meaning of words. When I speak English, especially as a learner, I remind myself that it's okay to use my whole body and emotions to communicate. Sometimes, when I'm searching for the right word or phrase, a gesture or facial expression can help me get my message across. I found that people are very receptive to this. They respond not only to the words, but to the feelings I'm showing. This makes conversations feel more natural and engaging even if my English isn't perfect yet. It also helps me feel more confident because I'm expressing myself fully, not just relying on language alone. Emotions play a huge role in communication. When you speak English, it's not enough to say words correctly. You want to express what you really feel, whether it's happiness, frustration, curiosity, or excitement. I encourage you to let your emotions come through in your voice and your expressions. When you're excited about something, show it. When you're confused or need help, don't hide it. Being authentic and emotionally open helps others understand you better, makes your English more memorable. It's this emotional connection that turns a simple conversation into a meaningful exchange. I also want you to pay attention to the body language of native speakers. Watch how they move their hands, how their faces change depending on what they're saying, and how their posture reflects their mood. You can learn a lot just by observing these nonverbal cues. When you start to recognize them, try to practice using some in your own conversations. For example, nodding to show agreement, smiling to express friendliness, or using your hands to emphasize a point. These small actions can make a big difference in how people perceive your English and how easily they understand you. One thing I've noticed is that sometimes learners feel like they need to be very serious or careful all the time, trying not to make mistakes or appear strange. But this can actually make your communication less effective. When you allow yourself to be relaxed and natural, your body language and emotions come through more easily, and your English sounds more fluent. It's almost like your personality shines through the language. I want you to give yourself permission to be expressive and to enjoy the process of communicating, mistakes, and all. Another important aspect is understanding the cultural side of body language and emotional expression. Different cultures have different ways of showing feelings through gestures and facial expressions. As you observe native English speakers, you'll notice some common patterns, but also differences depending on where they are from. This is a fascinating part of learning English because it helps you connect not just with the language, but with people from different backgrounds. You'll become more sensitive to the ways people express themselves and be able to respond more appropriately in conversations. When you practice speaking English, try recording yourself and watching how you use your face and hands. Are you showing the emotions behind your words? Does your body language match what you are saying? This kind of self-observation is a powerful tool to improve your communication skills. Over time, you'll become more aware of how you naturally express yourself and how you can adjust your expressions to fit different situations. The goal is to become comfortable with using your whole self to communicate, not just your voice. I want to share a story from my own experience. Early in my English learning journey, I was at an event where I needed to introduce myself and explain why I was learning English. I was nervous and unsure, but I decided to focus on my smile and eye contact. Even though my words were simple and my grammar wasn't perfect, people responded warmly because they could see my genuine interest and enthusiasm. That moment taught me that expression is a powerful part of communication. It can open doors even when language skills are still developing. Another time I was practicing a conversation with a friend, and we used role-playing to simulate different emotions, like frustration, excitement, or surprise. This practice helped me realize how much the tone of voice and body movements change the meaning of the same sentence. Saying "really" with surprise sounds very different from saying it with doubt or boredom. These subtle differences are what make language lively and human. The more you practice expressing these emotions, the more natural your English will sound. Finally, I want you to remember that speaking English is about sharing yourself with others. It's a chance to connect, to express your thoughts and feelings, and to build relationships. The words are important, but they are only one part of the picture. When you use your facial expressions, gestures, and emotions, you bring your language to life. You make it real and meaningful. So next time you speak English, try to be fully present. Not just saying words, but sharing your feelings and energy with the person you're talking to. If this idea of using expression and emotion in your English speaking feels helpful to you, try practicing in front of a mirror or with a friend. Notice how your face and hands move naturally as you talk about things you care about. And if you're feeling brave, record a short video of yourself speaking English with expression, and watch how it changes your communication. Share your experience with our community, or in the comments. I'd love to hear how adding this new dimension to your speaking has made a difference. Sometimes when you're learning English, it feels like you're stuck, like no matter how much effort you put in, you're not moving forward. Progress seems slow, or even non-existent. I want to tell you right away, this feeling is completely normal. Every learner experiences it at some point. I've been there many times myself, and I understand how frustrating it can be. You study, practice, maybe even speak a little, but then you hit a wall. You might feel like you're repeating the same mistakes, or that your English isn't improving as quickly as you hoped. It's easy to feel discouraged, or even think about giving up. But it's important to recognize this feeling for what it is, a natural part of the learning journey. When I first started learning English, I remember days when I felt like I wasn't making any progress at all. I was studying grammar rules, trying to build vocabulary, and practicing speaking. But sometimes it just didn't click. I would spend hours on exercises and still feel like I couldn't understand or communicate as well as I wanted. Those moments made me question if I was good enough, or if I would ever really speak fluently. But over time, I realized that learning a language isn't a straight path. It has ups and downs, moments of rapid improvement, and moments where things feel slow or stuck. Accepting this helped me stay motivated and keep going, even when I felt stuck. One of the best ways I learned to deal with that feeling of stagnation was by setting small, achievable goals. Instead of focusing only on big goals like I want to speak fluently or I want to understand everything, I started breaking down my learning into smaller steps. For example, one day my goal would be to learn 5 new words and use them in sentences. Another day, I would practice introducing myself clearly, or describing my day in English. These smaller goals gave me something real to achieve every day, and that made a big difference. When I reached those small goals, I felt a sense of accomplishment that motivated me to continue. Celebrating every little success became a habit for me. Even if it was just remembering a new phrase or understanding a short conversation, I made sure to recognize those wins. This simple act helped me shift my mindset from focusing on what I couldn't do yet to appreciating what I was able to do. It's easy to overlook progress when it's slow or small, but every bit counts. When you celebrate small victories, you build confidence and keep your energy high for the next challenge. It's like building a staircase one step at a time. Each step might seem small, but together they take you higher and closer to your goal. I also learned that frustration can actually be a sign that you're learning and pushing your limits. When you're comfortable, you don't grow much. Feeling stuck or frustrated means your brain is working hard to absorb and process new information. It's like your mind is stretching muscles you haven't used before. This discomfort is temporary, and it's part of becoming better. So when you feel stuck, try to remind yourself that this is a normal and necessary part of the learning process. You're not failing, you're growing. Another thing that helped me was changing how I viewed mistakes and setbacks. Instead of seeing them as failures, I started seeing them as clues and opportunities. If I made a mistake speaking or writing, I looked at it as feedback that told me where I needed more practice. If I misunderstood something, I took it as a sign to slow down and focus more on listening. This shift in perspective made a big difference. Instead of getting discouraged, I got curious and motivated to learn more. When you see challenges as part of your growth, it's easier to keep going than when things seem difficult. I want you to try this too. Whenever you feel stuck or frustrated, pause and ask yourself, what small step can I take next? Maybe it's reviewing a favorite English song or movie, writing a few sentences about your day, or practicing a simple conversation with a friend or even yourself. Then, when you complete that step, celebrate it. Give yourself credit for the effort and progress. Remember, slow progress is still progress, and each step you take is moving you forward. At times when progress feels slow, it can also help to look back and see how far you've come. When I do this, I feel motivated all over again. I realize that I'm better now than I was weeks or months ago, even if it doesn't feel like a big leap. I encourage you to keep a journal or record your speaking so you can look back and notice improvements you might not see day to day. This reflection helps you appreciate your journey and boosts your confidence. Lastly, I want to remind you, learning English is not a race. It's a personal journey that happens at your own pace. Some days you'll move quickly, and other days it might feel like you're standing still. Both are okay. What matters is that you keep trying and don't give up. The feeling of being stuck will pass, and soon you'll find yourself speaking and understanding better than before. Trust the process and trust yourself. If this sounds familiar to you, and you're ready to take small steps forward despite the frustration, start right now. Pick one small goal today. Maybe learning 3 new words or saying a short sentence out loud, and do it. Share your goal with someone or write it down to make it real. Then, when you complete it, celebrate your achievement and keep going. I'm here with you in this journey, and I want to hear about your progress. Feel free to share your experiences with our community or in the comments. Your small victories matter and inspire others too. Remember, learning English is not just about words or grammar. It's about believing in yourself. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard. It's about celebrating every small victory because those victories build the bridge to fluency. Your voice matters. Your effort matters. And your journey is uniquely yours. No matter where you are right now, keep moving forward. Keep speaking, keep practicing, and keep believing. Because with patience, persistence, and heart, there is no limit to what you can achieve. Thank you for joining me today on English Without Limit. I'm Julia, reminding you to stay courageous, stay curious, and most of all, keep your English growing without limits. Until next time, take care and keep shining.